Are you filming us?
No,
watching?
it's not.
No.
Yes, of course, yes.
Not now.
Yes, of course, yes.
There you go, Ella. What are you saying now?
Well, where's the camera? Oh, there.
Oh, they're everywhere.
Oh,
There we go.
oh dear.
Because children were young, you know, and I wasn't so very old myself, you know.
No,
So they just made do.
30 years ago, 50 years ago.
Pretty rough, you know.
German,
Polish.
and came out here when?
In
Early 30s, I think,
Yeah,
wasn't
it would have been 30 because I was a baby.
We came out in 1925 from Poland. Dad came to Australia before the First World War. He was a young fellow.
Oh, yeah.
We should go back to the beginning.
Stay there, Lyd. I'll bring a microphone up.
My daughter says, now you're on Facebook, you'll be all over the world. Making scones. See, there's the garden in here.
Could you point out whereabouts your farm was and tell me a bit about the geraniums?
Okay. The farm was out here,
Other side the rock.
the other side of the rock. Good on you, Lyd. The other side of the rock.
And the geraniums?
And the geraniums are...
Here, they're just up that cutting in the rock. That's what we planted.
Tell me when to start. Okay.
And those trees there were planted by Dad, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, oaks or she oaks, Ted.
They're she oaks.
She oaks, yeah.
They weren't original.
And I reckon Dad planted around the other side. I reckon Dad planted some.
The gum trees.
Yeah, some. The red flowers, sturt peas, but the rabbits ate them.
Yes, yeah. Talking about the geraniums.
Yeah, gone. You're on film, Jean.
The geraniums, the geranium originally belonged to our mum and was the only flower besides chrysanthemums that she liked. And I brought them up here when I was probably about 13, and we had two gardens here, one to my right and a bit further on there was another one.
Got a stick that flies all gone.
And we planted them there, and over the years, and they are still growing. And that would have been in 1938 that I brought them here. I would have been about 13 or something like that.
Ah.
Where did we used to put a sheet of tin and
Around the other side, Ted.
The other side where we
it was.
were.
Yeah. And Ted, can you remember?
How come we didn't chop our fingers off?
I know.
Ted, can you remember from home? We had a tyre, and we'd push the tyre up to the top of the rock, and then let it go down, and it would finish up by the drain. And then we'd run down there and pick it up and push it back up on the rock and do it again.
That's probably after.
Well,
That's probably on a Sunday after we
I
had.
don't think I was there doing that, was I?
Yeah,
I don't know. You probably would have been.
that was probably after we had church
Yeah, probably.
on the Sunday.
So God was probably with us then.
Well, we certainly got a fair dose of it.
And Dad would drone on, wouldn't he? Dad would drone on, when he's reading this sermon book. Wow.
In German.
No, it was English.
No, it was English.
Was it?
Kapanam.
Kupfanong was one name he couldn't pronounce in English.
Stumble on a word.
Yeah. Too.
And Dad always had a big garden, didn't he? And I can remember these great big rows of carrots, and we used to have to weed them. And I can remember we were sitting, Dad must have been weeding behind the broad beans, you know, they would have been up at this high. And I threw the dishwater out over the garden, and Dad pops up out the garden.
And threw the dishwater over Dad.
Threw the dishwater over him.
Yeah.
There's a drone.
But Dad, on Sunday afternoon, it was our walk up here to the rock, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We used to come up here practically every Sunday. It was our rock.
Yeah.
But
yes.
Dad used to read out of the sermon out of a book, and we didn't like it.
No.
We used to go kangaroo.
Yeah, but us little...
Go early.
Yeah, but we used to, us little ones used to have to sit and listen to Dad read. About 6 pages. Oh.
He worked for a butcher at Loxton, learnt the trade, the butcher's trade, and became very handy on the farm because Dad used to prepare the beast and the pig in the winter time to do all the German sausages and bacon and all that sort of thing. He learnt all that from the butcher at Loxton. And then we went to Gawler and worked, and Dad worked in the chaff mill.
But Dad jumped ship before then, didn't he? Did he?
No, then he came to us. That was when he jumped ship in the beginning. That's how he come to be in Australia. He was a fireman in a stoker in a coal burning ship, and he came to Port Adelaide. Loved the country, loved the sunshine, and plenty of firewood. And that was when he worked for the German the butcher. Went to Loxton, then he went to Gawler, and it was at that time that the war broke out, and he was interned.
Yeah.
In near Port Adelaide. What was the
Torrens Island.
Torrens Island. He was in Torrens Island. Then they shipped them to Liverpool, and then after the war he was deported. And that was after World War I. And then in 1920 he married a Polish girl and had Felix, Clem and me. And in 19 he always wanted to come back to Australia. Desperately wanted to come back. So the Noakes at Gawler, and I think Traeger's from Lower Mitcham in Adelaide, they sponsored us to come back. And I was 3 months old when we left Southampton on the 17th of December 1925. So I was born in 1925. So I was just 3 months old.
And I was the first one born in Australia in our family.
Yeah, but it was freezing cold in London when they left, because Mum said it was so cold she kept me inside of her coat to keep me warm when they were waiting for the boat to sail from Southampton. And then we came to Australia and went to Gawler to live, and Dad worked again in the chaff mill. And that's when Ted was born.
Yeah.
And Edna and Lydia were born at Gawler.
And then came to...
And around about 1930 we came to the West Coast. I have a photo of us having a cup of tea on the side of the road. I brought it for you to have a look at.
Could you show us?
Yeah, it's in my bag.
So this is on the way here.
This is on the way here. This This is Dad and our mum here. There's me. I was about 5. There's Ted hiding behind Mum. There's Lydia as a baby.
Cute, wasn't I?
Yeah, cute little kid. And there's Edna.
I was a bit shy, so that's why I sneaked behind somebody.
And when the people used to come, we used to get under the bed, didn't we, Ted?
Yeah, we did.
And we'd be looking out, you know, they could
This
see
is
us.
Mr. Scholz, Mr.
Dick Scholz.
And this is Mrs. Norman George. And that was somewhere, by looking at the trees, it must have been round about Port Augusta, Iron Knob, where we stopped and had a cuppa on the road. And Lyd was there's the baby, and she was probably around, you know, only months old. So that was she was born in 1930, so that was when we came over.
What were facilities like then?
Very primitive, very primitive, very primitive.
Tell us about your first house.
The first house was a government shed.
Yeah, but Dad worked for Barnes's and Fred Vedding.
Yeah, but that was only temporary. It was only temporary till he was allotted this land from the bank at Minnapa.
At Pildappa.
At Pildappa.
So a government shed, which is pretty common at the time.
There were 2 government sheds, and both had water tanks, 2 tanks each side. Both sheds had both tanks. And one was the dwelling made of a house, and the other was for implements and workshop and so forth, yeah.
One post, nothing in it, only heaps of pocket chaff and torn bags with super. I don't think Lucas lived there, you know, at all, because they were all single fellas. They must have been living with in the company like Mick O'Brien and Bill O'Brien and Bill Crowder and Arthur Dean, you know. They were all single fellas. They must have been, you know, camping together, and so he didn't live there at all, you know. So we had to make our beds under the roof, you know, and well, we got going and sewed up super bags and things, you know, made boats out of that. Yeah. And that was our first home. These fellas were all, you know, the single didn't worry about, but you got family and children, you got to look after them. Yeah.
And earthen floors, perhaps covered with rubberoid?
No, but it was dirt floors first. Yeah. And then when Dad got a bit of money, I suppose, he put rubberoid down. Yeah.
Used to clean that with a bit of milk in the water?
Yes, yeah. Well, wash it first. Scrub it.
Yeah.
And then milk made it real dark and a bit shiny.
But the clay floor was like cement, and Mum used to sweep it. She used to,
yeah, but you had to wet it.
She'd wet it with the water, with a bucket, which she'd wet all of it, and then she'd sweep it.
And Dad made the broom out of broom bush.
And the
broom was round like a witch's broom bush.
From the sandhill, we used to go up and get the
broom.
Get the brush from the sandhill.
Jean, go and pick us another brush.
And another broom.
And you tell us your original history.
You.
Like,
we can keep talking, can we?
yes.
Keep on talking, set up for you.
Yeah.
When you first came, what you saw.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
You better with your neighbours a little bit like that. We'd come in and you had hard water, or you had water, you're fortunate enough in some ways to have water.
Yeah.
With the rock there, right handy, where in a lot of cases if you're away from the water, well,
we had Pildappa Rock, you know, we had water there, but only late summer usually the tank go dry, you know.
Oh yeah. They get cracks in them, didn't they? They got cracks.
Yeah, but that tank was really in a bad way, right from when it was new, you know, the water just disappeared, you know. After that, the tank was filled up, and a few days after it was several feet lower down, you know.
Yeah.
Just, you know, ran out, water ran out.
No, it must have been just poor construction.
I was worried because it's a thankless job cutting water, you know.
Oh, yes.
And I built tanks, but those times I didn't have many tanks myself, you know, Scottish tanks and things. And it's a darn nuisance, you know, to cut water, leave everything else in cut water, you know, for stock, you know.
And where were you at a cut water apart from there?
Oh, from Pildappa.
You did come into Pildappa, did you?
I think there was there was a standpipe near King's, you know.
Ah, yes.
Around there, but that's about 5-6 miles or so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to go
long
around
way to
there.
cut water.
Yeah.
When you're carting with horses too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
One thing we're thankful about was when that Tod actually came through. See, that came through in about 90. When I can remember in the real early days, like what we were talking about, the Tod water main coming up, and we'd hear about this, where the down around Cummins Way, or this side of Cummins somewhere there, and or near around Lock. Oh, water down there. We'll never get it up here though. It seemed so long in coming that you'd think, no. Then at last it got as far as Kind Cutter, or you'd hear that there's a water camp at Kind Cutter. You'd say, oh, by gee, the water's getting a bit closer now. Well, then eventually, when it really did get here, we could hardly believe our eyes. We'd think that we could go out and turn the tap on. Well, that was about 1926 when it actually got here. But then, I don't think the town was reticulated probably for 12 months or more after that. But it was a godsend when it came. Not so much for the town too, but for the farmers.
Well, the pipeline is through the bloodstream.
Oh, yes.
Keep the whole country alive, the whole coast, you know. It's without the water, well, if the water gets cut off now, we'll be cut all of us.
Yeah.
Millions of sheep and all things, cattle and things, you know, they need a lot of water, not like years ago, you know, 60 years ago, you know, there was hardly any sheep at all, and a few horses and things.
You can hardly visualize that first pot track, when that was put down to water all the people all up this way from down there. I mean, it never looked near the size, like big enough.
No.
You could hardly visualise, but of course there wasn't a stock drawing on it.
No.
And then of course, in after years, when she started, they used to join them together with lead slugs in the pipes, in the cast iron pipes, and they, well, that was true, they didn't last that long. They started giving a lot of trouble, and they had to turn around and renew it.
When was the first pipeline condemned in the other put on? When was that? That was.
When did the second one start?
Yeah.
I just haven't got a record of that, John. I know the first one.
I thought this was the second or.
No, this is the last one. This one's only just about 5 years ago. See?
Yeah, I know.
But it must have been about halfway, I should say, between that and 1926, I should say. Because it seemed to last for quite a while.
I don't remember, because we were not connected with it, you know, and things, you know, but didn't worry much about it.
And they reckoned that there wouldn't be enough water to supply anymore. That's why they kept saying in a lot of cases, no good putting bigger pipes or connecting out further, because we haven't got the water down there. They're all frightened that they mightn't have enough water to keep it going. And then, of course, if they turned around and put that down and they didn't, well, the government would be getting into strife then. They'd get the blame.
They get blamed for it.
Yeah, they get the blame.
Yeah, well, did you tell us about the early days of the donkeys, 1930? We got that yesterday, but we lost it. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, well, they thought of getting donkeys because I couldn't afford to buy horses. I didn't have the money. And even buying donkeys, I had to go to the bank and borrow money to pay for them. And the banker thought I was not quite right in my head, you know. Tries to farm with donkeys. But there was a farmer, Gus Clanty, around Baramboo. He had donkeys, and he had 2 boys and driving them, and they were really, you know, well, done a bit of work, and you know, it's not bad. They had a bit more experience than I did too, you know. When I got them first, I didn't. Well, the donkeys knew nothing about me, and I did nothing about donkeys. It's a bit awkward to start work, you know.
What do we have there?
This is Dad
Team of donkeys.
with a team of donkeys with putting the crop in. And this is
16-foot machine.
Yeah, and what is it now? What are they now? The big...
And this is Ted at the back here. He had to watch the tines at the back of the drill so that it didn't clog up with roots and stumps. He had to watch it. And Dad's there. There's Dad here. Where is it?
Yeah, there.
There's Dad there. And there's 2 rows of donkeys. And they were good little workers too, the donkeys, weren't they?
I don't know.
Especially Paddy. Dad always said Paddy was the best little donkey he had.
When I got my donkeys around driving towards Lake Calabona, the donkeys being out there, some of them were really born there, you know, bred out there in the bush, you know, and around Lake Calabona there's fresh water springs and almost permanent, and they come for a drink there. I had to camp there too. So when I got the donkeys away from lake towards the east from Calabona, when I drove them, I put them in a cart, 3 of them in a cart, 1 in the shafts, and you know, and they just followed the track. And of course they made straight line for the camping ground. They knew where the camping ground was. And there's creeks of water washed out creeks into the lake, you know. But banks of soil washed away, about 3 feet deep and about 10 feet wide, you know, big creeks, you know, water after rain washed out. And those donkeys just followed on. I tried to pull them sideways. No, they wouldn't. They just go across. They jumped down, and of course the shafters gave a cart a tip, and I tipped me out into the creek, and the cart followed on top of me. It wasn't really very nice.
No.
Would have been a few Polish swear words probably.
And felt my bones. Nothing was broken, but I was pretty sore, and I was swearing. I told the donkeys what I thought of them.
They didn't take much notice of you.
No, nothing at all. So that was my experience with donkeys in the first place, you know. Then again, you know, once you get used to them, to their ways and things, some of them never had any harness on them. They're really wild, you know,
Yeah.
but not like a horse. They catch them in the yard by the ear and put the harness on and put them in a team, and they work. No trouble at all. Slow.
Yeah, they'd either work or don't work. If they didn't want to work, they just stand there.
Oh no, they kept going. I used to put 12 donkeys in a drill. Done 20 acres a day in a drill.
Oh, that's all right.
And
20 acres?
you know, don't stop much for dinner. They didn't eat much any.
20 acres those days was a good day, wasn't
Good
it?
right to it, yeah. An acre, you probably, if you had a 20 row, an acre a row was quite good. That's what we used to reckon.
Long days, of course, you know, because that's all the implement I had, you know, a drill, you know.
Yeah.
I bought that, you know, for the new
Just
drill.
got a picture here of the donkeys in the yard. There's Ted in the front, me, Felix and Clem. And I think that the donkey was probably Nell. We lived on these donkeys, especially the 2 females, Nell and Queenie. And they were really pets. They were quite, you know, very tame. As you can see, the others they were working, but these were the more domesticated ones. You know, we used to ride on them and play around with them, but the rest are just the working. They're in a paddock, in a thing. And I can still remember when they first came there, because they were all males. There was only 2 females, Queenie and Nell. The rest were boy donkeys. And the first thing Dad did was to have them castrated, except one. And you remember that, Ted? Yeah.
Later on, I got a combine, small combine. Yeah. But 16 how I think, was it?
There used to be quite a few 16s.
Yeah. Anyhow, but that implement was too heavy for them. You know, they pulled along, you know, but slow, you know.
Sorry?
They were slow. The donkeys were slow. Yeah.
But they got there.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Ted had to walk behind him, so he wouldn't have been going too fast, would you, Ted?
No.
All day.
And how was that?
Yeah, we used to let them out night time, and they'd, you know, because you couldn't feed them, and they'd eat the flowers off the porcupines.
The spinifex.
So, you know, and that was there, and then we'd bring them in the morning and work them. Yeah.
So they were better than a John Deere, really.
Or a Fergie.
You know, finally, you know, I realized that I had to get team of horses, you know, but by then I had quite a mob of donkeys, around about 30. Hilliers bought a team for themselves, you know, old Ern Hillier.
Yeah.
And with his boys, they got a team from me. They, you know, the horses, but they, you know, wasn't much use, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you told us a bit about going to church down Pinbong yesterday, and we lost that one too. Could you tell us again?
Yes.
You used to have to travel down there? And
Take your car to go down?
I travelled to Pinbong and into the farm of sergeants. I had a dray, sort of type of saltbush bill type of dray. So, you know, the saltbush bill jokes.
Yeah.
One wheel was a steel wheel, that was a wooden one. There were discarded wheels of strippers, you know, and mostly mallee sticks around it, mallee shafts and things, you know, tied up with wire.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest conveyance, and of course I had
to transport, eh?
Yeah, on the farm too, made in a tip dray and things, you know, it was a two-wheeler. Put the kids on, but no, I drove with a buggy to Venus. Sometimes I did go with donkeys too, but we used to go across country, you know, run through Kings, you know, and the country was open, wasn't fenced off and things, you know. Made a lot nearer than it is now, going around the road. Even so, it's slow going and sandals and things.
Yeah, well, there was only tracks in those days. It wasn't.
Usually 3 days trip, you know, there and back, you know.
Yeah.
Stop there for a couple of nights and.
Yeah.
I was driving that dray through King's paddock, and of course we go through paddocks, you know, and full of stumps. And as it happened, Bob Redding came behind on horseback, and I heard him coming, and they took off with that dray. I had Clemmy was only about 10 or so, you know, with me in a dray. He was hanging on with hands and feet that he wouldn't fall off, and the thing is tipping, galloping, donkeys going like that. Bob had the job to pass me, you know. They were really, you know, scared of. In fact, I was when I was home the first year, anyway along the road, anybody coming along on horseback, they took off with the implement, you know, going in a circle. They did too, you know, with a plow, you know.
Yeah.
They were good animals, you know. They tried the best, you know. They never refused to pull, you know.
No.
They never refused.
I got to Australia in 25 with my family, 26, early January 26.
Oh yeah, well just after that then. Careful, the Tod River was just up here then, at Minnepa.
Well, I wasn't, of course, in Minnepa then.
No, but I'm saying
I was around Adelaide and Gola.
Yes, how you're saying you didn't get here till 30, see?
Yeah. No, I was in Gola probably the longest time before I went to the coast, you know. I was there for several years, you know. I carted sand out of the Gola River, you know, to the railway station for builders, you know, wash sand, river sand. Then I got a job in a chaff mill.
Oh, yeah.
For Den Noax, you know. I worked there for quite a number of years, 2.5 years or so. I could have stayed there for longer, but you know, I had to give it up. I had rheumatics and I couldn't pitch any hay, you know. I was really, you know, the doctor several times and I couldn't do much about it, you know. And then depression was setting in too.
Yeah.
So I got we had one of our ministers by the name of Pastor Harnap. He was serving people on the coast, Lutherans. And, he sort of partly recommended me to get a job for Bill Barnes' share farming. That didn't stay very long, only 6 months.
Yeah. But go on.
Only 6 months, and anyhow, then I went to Fred Wedding. Wedding was a good man, I believe good man to me, you know. He was a big man, you know. Single. He was a bachelor.
When didn't he marry?
He married then later on.
That's what I thought.
But at that time he was still a bachelor. And he helped me a lot. The first time he gave me a loan of his team of horses and a super and a bit of feed, horse feed and things, you know. It took me 3 years to get here, you know. And later on, 1 year he had it was a year of red rust, you know, and he couldn't sell any wheat, you know. That must have been in 33 or so. And he got pigs. He said, "You're going to get pigs and feed the pigs and sell them, you know." But when he had pigs, he couldn't sell them either. There was no market.
No market for pigs in those days.
He brought out. I said, "Fred, what about you? It's a Vietnam sheep then. What about selling me one of your pigs? I can't pay you now, but later on, when I afford to, I pay for it." He brought the pig out to Pildappa from Budna, helped killing, make metwurst and bacon and hams, you know. We had pig meat for a lot.
We used to always do that. We used to make. I used to even myself, but I couldn't do it now. I used to kill pigs and make hams and that out of them.
Yeah. Hams, metwurst and things.
And things.
Will I tell you this little one about a bit of mine, that little one?
Yeah. Please.
You're still there?
You ready?
Anytime you wish.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute, I've got to get my stuck on.
It sounds like you're riding the... Hey, what is this on top? You...
That's what I need.
You look like Mr. Seaman, you know?
I haven't got a mirror, have you? Is it on properly?
Yeah, well, you've got the cheese on properly.
Putting his hair back on. He's putting his hairpiece on. Who? Pee-Pee Cook.
Pee-Pee Cook.
Oh.
Pee-Pee Cook used to go to Adelaide to umpire in the big matches. He was from Mount Damper, yeah.
Bit of a character.
He was, yes. He sure was, yeah.
That's also recording. You were born at Elliston in...
No, 1895 I was born.
95,
At Elliston. And my father died when I was 18 months old. So I know nothing about him, only that he came from Devonshire, England.
And you took up the property out there when?
1920.
How many acres did you have there when you first went there?
I had 4 farms and I share farm 2 farms for Miller now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hear the galah in the background, and then there's another bird too. You know, he's singing out.
Characteristic of this area?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, when Dad, you know, somebody said something, Dad's accent, he was home building a shed, helping build our big shed. He was well in his 70s, and I was going in the town. He said, get me some tongs, and I wrote tongs on my list, and I couldn't. Afterwards, I thought, what do you want tongs for? And later on, he said, you know, those tongs, get size 8.
Tongs.
Tongs, and he was saying, he said tongs, of course, and he. I didn't know what he wanted. Tongs for? Oh, get size 8, he says, or 10 or whatever.
The tongs didn't kick the prickles out.
Yes, a lot of people have got that same video. Yeah, but I had it done from VCR to DVD. Eric Elefsen was with the policeman. They came when our youngest sister was born. Dad took Mum to our neighbour because we didn't have a car at the time, and he took her to Bignell's, and they had a car, and they took Mum. They took Mum to the Wooden Hospital, and next morning Mr. Elefsen and the policeman came round about sunrise to say that Dad was wanted urgently at the hospital. So he got into some clean clothes and tidy clothes, and they took him to the hospital, and by the time he got to the hospital, Mum had died.
Oh.
Yeah, she delivered Mary, our little sister, and she died. Yeah. But we didn't know till that Dad came back that night. He was at the hospital with I think they got the Lutheran pastor to come up from Arno Bay, and he brought Dad home in the evening, and yeah. And of course none of us knew what happened, you know, but we knew that Mum had had a baby girl, that Mum had died.
Which obviously probably put a big burden on.
Well, on us older ones, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, the cow had to be milked that night, and nobody knew how to milk the cow. Mum was the only one that milked Rosie, and not Rosie.
No, it wouldn't have been Rose. She would have been
not Rosie.
by the time we were trying to milk her.
I can't think of the name. What was the
Carnation.
Carnation. Yeah. So Phil had to milk the cow. Phil had no idea how to milk the cow, and Dad stood alongside of Phil and the cow, and he said, "Do it this way, Phil. This way, Phil." And poor old Phil, Felix, we called him. It was Felix, but he got named Phil later on in life. But he said, "Do it this way," and the tears were rolling down his cheeks. I was standing alongside of them, watching them, and poor old Felix, he was there crying his eyes out, trying to milk this cow.
Grieving and getting told off all at one time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, do it this way.
But that was
the
way things were those days, and you got through it, obviously.
Obviously, Dad, it must have been none of us realised how the enormity of it, you know, having 9 kids, and he was only in his 40s too.
How old was Felix?
Mum was only 39 when she died.
And how old was the eldest of the children?
14. I
14. Felix would have been about 14.
It was 2 days before his birthday, wasn't it? Phil's birthday and Mary's birthday.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Phil was he 14?
Yeah, he was 14.
So how old were you?
I wasn't quite 11.
But so obviously you shared out the workload.
Yeah. Well.
What were your jobs?
Oh, we got farmed out.
Yes.
Till I could go to school.
Soon after Mum died, we went to different neighbours, and by the end of the year we went to the Friends at Gawler. We were split up. Me and Ella and John went to one family at Gawler, and Lydia and Edna went to another family. But we met one another at the school, and we all went to the school together. Ella and John were preschool, so they weren't schoolies yet, but I did grade 4 there at the Lutheran school. And I finished, and I know I did grade 5 there, and it would have been, we would have gone there in 1936, and I think we came home about 1938, early 1938, back home again. But if the different ones wanted to adopt the younger ones of the family, but Dad was fiercely protective of all us kids, and he wouldn't. He was a really proud father, but he wouldn't part with any of them. Even the baby. Different ones wanted to adopt the baby, but he wouldn't part with any of them. And Mary was staying with friends till she was 8, and then she had to come home as well to complete the family.
Well, the baby lived with the Scholzes for 7 years. And anyway, she found it hard to come home. He wanted to come home again, and she found it very hard. Mary did, even right up to the time she died. She'd still talk about it.
Well, she was taken away from the only family she'd ever known.
She used a whole heap of brothers, and I think there might have been one girl there, but that's what she got. That's what she was growing up with, And then you've got to come and learn to live with your brothers and sisters. Yeah.
Yep.
And that was what year did you all get back together again?
Well, we would have all got back together. Not Mary. We all got back together about 1938. We were all back together again.
Did we only stay in Gawler for 2 years? And Edna and I stayed longer, didn't we? Yeah. I suppose I was sooking too much, so it probably leave me behind.
She doesn't strike me as much of a sook.
We said she was.
Well, would have been understandable. I mean, tough times, goodness me. Losing your mum and then getting shipped off.
Well, I don't. Jean came and stayed with us, but that must have been just after Mum died, I think. Yeah, she stayed with us for a while.
With one or two of the younger ones?
No, just her on her own. Yeah, for some reason. Yeah, because she always talked about my sister Ilma always getting dressed up to go to the dances and that.
Dad visited us once when we were at Gawler, only the once, and I can still remember going to Gawler when we went with relatives of Spencer's. Of course, it was Mr. Stan Valangas that took us. Remember Stan Valangas, the Greek?
He had a shop at Kwaterski.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and we stayed the night at Wirrabra, the first night, and we slept on the floor, me and Ella and John. You must have came later.
Yeah, I did.
Later, you and Edna must have come later.
Because I went to school at Gawler.
So where was Ted?
Yeah, and Ted was home, and he'd had to
I had to stay home with Clem and Phil.
Yeah, and he had to milk the cows and do all the jobs.
Before I went to school.
Yeah. It would have been tough on him too.
You'd have only had one cow. We only had the one cow then. We got Rosie later.
Yeah, we'll talk about the house, Jean. That was a real elegant house, wasn't it, when we were little?
Well,
Dad made a house under the shed.
It was a government shed, just had a roof and that.
Sewed super bags.
Divided the rooms up with bag, sewed the bags together to make the...
Super bags sewed together.
Yep, and a bag for a door, just swish it.
And the outer walls were bag, but Dad burnt lime got the lime from the paddock.
You know, the stone, the limestone.
Made a big...
You burnt them.
And put a layer of stumps in, and then put the rocks in, and then another layer. And he burnt the stone, cooked the stone, made the lime to whitewash the walls. So the walls were quite stiff then, outside and inside. So we were pretty smart with white walls.
And it kept the wind out.
Yeah.
Because they were
sealed.
They were sealed with this lime and water, weren't they?
Yep.
Yep.
So it was a gradual process of improvement.
Yeah, of course it was.
Does the house still stand?
No. The bag walls came off, and finally tin went on, and then the tin came off, and then bricks.
And he made the bricks.
Dad made the bricks, and then the whole lot came down, and they built this.
When John got married.
When they pulled the whole shed down, demolished the lot, and built a nice homestead.
Yeah. In the kitchen, in the beginning, in the kitchen had half of the tank in there. You know, that we had water in the kitchen, and up one wall was the tank.
One wall was the pump, yes.
And the door fitted around the tank. You know, so
yeah.
It was good. And we had an old wood box and a wood fire.
And you lived in that house up until when?
Oh.
It was after I was married that Dad built the new house. Ella probably could tell you more about that, but I was married in 1945, so they were still in the old, under the same house then, under the shed then.
Yeah, Clem was married because we lived in, they put up a tent, didn't they? Because they put the house the new house where the old house was. So
yeah, so we'd live in a tent, yeah.
We must have cooked in the kitchen, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we did too.
But we slept in the tent, I know.
Did you? Oh, you bet.
Around the side of the...
Bet you thought that was good.
On the side of the shed. Yeah. And in the house, you know, there was 3 of us in the one bed, and the mattresses were cocky chaff. You know, after harvest, you know, we'd tip out all the old, I suppose it was all piddly and all. You know, we got new cocky chaff and after harvest, and yeah, it was 3 of us in the bed.
I can't ever remember any bedwetting ever.
I don't know. No.
Well, you would have got a nudge in the ribs.
Yes, I can't ever remember, even the little kids, you know. I can't remember any.
Because it would have been noted by the neighbour.
Yeah, and it used to wriggle around so that the chaff...
Yeah, you make a hole.
Yeah, for your bum to sit in.
Eventually we got mattresses.
Yeah, yep.
But probably Dad always used to go to the auction sales at the end of the season. You know, there was off shares or off auction sales, clearing sales, and Dad would bring home furniture and crockery, and we used to think that was the most wonderful thing, to have something different, and furniture, beds and mattresses, everything. We'd, you know, probably didn't pay very much for it, but, you know, this new crockery, and we were pretty smart.
Yeah, we thought we were.
We thought we were. Never ever bought anything new.
No.
Never.
But it was a big improvement on not having it.
Yes, yes.
Well, where would you buy it new anyway?
Where would you buy it new? That's a good point.
Yeah, and Jean, talk about the bilbies, you know, buying all the groceries.
Oh, well, yeah, every so often Dad would give a list. Mum was still alive then too. A big list of what we needed, you know, a bag of flour and a big bag of sugar and a case of jam, mixed jam, Glen Ewan jam.
Mm-hmm. Tin fruit.
And a case of tin fruit. The Glen Ewan jam would always start off with raspberry, or it was mixed, of course, and the last tins was marmalade. Nobody liked
either that or plum jam.
Plum jam was all mixed Glen Ewan jam.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the box that they sent the groceries was quite a big box, like a cabin box, you know, quite a big box, and it was always lined with tin. And Dad, a very good handyman he was, he put hinges on it and made a lid on it, and that was called the bilby box. And that was where we put our bread in when we baked the bread.
Get the stuff from S.O. Bilby.
S.O. Bilby in Adelaide.
Through the elder
Goldsboroughs.
Mortsons.
Yes, Dad would give the list to Goldsboroughs, and they'd probably send it over on the boat and then on the bus to Pildappa. Yeah, and there was always a bag of boiled lollies in there for us. Yeah,
and that would last us a long time.
Yeah,
and of course he'd buy more than one or two bags of flour and then when the mice were about, they'd bite a hole in the flour bags.
No, Dad made a bin. Don't you remember the bin that he made?
I can remember
the big bin.
Mouse poo in the sieve when you're making bread. There'd be mouse poo in there.
Dad.
Used to put the flour in before and sieve it so that any lumps would, go through the sieve, over the flour, the fine stuff.
You never threw anything away? I said, you never threw anything away?
No.
No, you didn't, no. Even if the weevils got in there, you'd strain it.
You take the weevils out.
That's right. Today, this younger generation, they wouldn't even have it. They'd take it back to the shop. But you had to survive.
Great way.
Dad made a bin that was about this high. I don't know how many. He opened flattened kerosene tins and soldered them all together.
Kerosene or honey?
Kerosene or honey.
We used to buy honey in the...
And big bin like this, and it was about this high.
Yeah.
And then he made a proper lid for it to fit on this round thing, and that was a whole wheat bag of flour went in this bin. Remember that, Ted?
Yeah.
So the farm was mechanised in what, the 1950s, or?
It would have been.
I think, but there was probably only about one paddock, I think, wasn't there? That you could put a crop in, but then the boys and Dad had to knock down the scrub and clean some more, and then us kids used to have to pick stumps, and he'd cut hay, we'd have to help stook the hay, and then when he used to cut chaff, some of us little ones, Ella and I, the boys would fill the wagon up with hay, and then we used to have to feed. Dad would be cutting the hay, cutting the chaff, and we used to have to feed the sheaves in.
But did we?
Because he used to have that old part of a car, and then drive the chaff cutter with the back wheel.
Yeah, we did too. Yeah, because you had with the belt on. Yeah. On the tyre.
Yeah.
Jacked it up.
That's why we didn't get killed there.
It is a wonder.
We had this great long belt thing.
None of us ever got hurt.
No.
None of us ever got hurt.
You were possibly lucky.
Yeah. And Dad had made a frame.
Well, a lot of people weren't quite so lucky.
Yeah, and carting hay, Dad made a frame for the wagon. And the boys and Dad would cart hay, and build really good haystacks.
Yeah, and we used to have to go underneath this.
But we
had to go underneath this wire, and somebody got hooked with the wire and fell off the back.
What was I going to say? Here's the school photos.
And Dad was, we're really religious, and the minister used to come from Arno Beijing.
Yes.
Yeah, and anyway, we used to think he was God. He thought he was too, and we didn't like him much because there'd be church, and then we'd have Sunday school, then be confirmation lessons, and he'd stay at our place for a few days. So we used to have to be on our best behaviour.
A photo of Dad in the camp. In a concentration camp there, and that's one of his friends. That's a photo of Dad when he was in the camp.
And then
is this Torrens Island? Or?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
probably.
And so when the minister...
The internment camp?
It was an internment.
That's Torrens Island, yeah.
There's a photo of Mum, our Mum and Felix. and that's her sister.
Is this in the camp as well? Or?
No, that was probably in Poland.
Oldest one, and then there was Clem, Jean, and then me.
Well, we
John used to take
were
the
never
minister.
bored. We were never bored. We always had plenty to do.
Yeah, we had
Plenty to.
We never had a toy.
We never had any toys.
Christmas time, we'd have to go out. Dad would go out in the scrub and get a
Christmas
pine tree for Christmas tree.
And it was a big Christmas was a big thing, you know. It was always.
But we never had any toys or anything.
Was
we
always,
made our own toys.
We always got something for Christmas and a stocking.
Yeah.
And the Christmas stocking always.
But you just sometimes think how coming from Europe, out to Pildappa in a shed, with dirt floors, but then I suppose conditions in Europe were probably just as bad, and it'd be cold too.
But Dad loved Australia because there was plenty of firewood, and when we went on the farm, the first thing he did was to put down a garden. He grew our almond trees. We had a row of almond trees, and he grew them from seed. And rows and rows of grapevines. He probably got the cuttings from Mr. Wedding from Woodner, and we had heaps of fruit and vegetables. He used to give our neighbours, produce from the garden.
And we didn't have water either, we had a bit of water, but not a lot.
Well, we had the water
from for the garden.
Yeah, it was a granite rock, and there was drains going into this
Government tank.
250,000 gallon tank, and of course that used to run dry, but there was still a foot of water in it, and the pipe was up above the bottom. So Dad made a 4-gallon thing with a spout on it to fit over that pipe, and I used to go there all day and bucket water into this,
and John did
into the thing, so that we could have to get the last bit out of the tank.
Yeah. They wouldn't want it to go dry, would it? Because if the tank went dry,
it'd crack. Yeah. Cement tank. Yeah. Government tank. Yeah.
And then if we had a thunderstorm, Dad would go up to the rock and clean out the drains so the water would go to the...
Well, in the beginning, Dad fixed up the gutters around the rock too. A lot of the gutters were probably the boys would have helped Dad too. And wasn't a concrete mixer days either.
The cement,
the shoulder,
and the tank was about a foot high or a bit.
Right around the rock.
Right around the rock, and that had into this big government tank.
But you know what? That was our rock, wasn't it? Yeah, it was our rock. That was ours. And I can still remember only the other day, last night, the orchids. The orchids were growing in the bushes there, the spider orchids and different types of orchids. I'm probably not there anymore now, but we used to gather orchids and take them home.
And I can remember, Dad bought Phil and Clem a bike, and Edna got a bright idea that Ella and her and I were going to come up, set some rabbit traps up here, up in the rock, and we were going to get enough money to buy a bike for us. Yeah. Because Edna was the biggest and she was the boss. So we had to do what Edna said. Anyway, so we came in the daytime, we'd come up with the traps and the paper and a hammer to knock the peg in, and we'd set the trap. Then at night time in the dark, we'd come up with a lantern and check the traps. Righto, the first burrow we went to, well, there was a rabbit in the trap. And of course Edna was the biggest and the boss, so she said, I'll kill the rabbit, so she gets the rabbit out the trap and, pulls it.
And the rabbit ran down the hole.
Ran down the hole. So the next burrow, we come to the next heap of warrens, and of course there's a rabbit in the trap. And anyway, Edna says, I'll kill it, So she pulls the rabbit and it goes down the hole. So I don't know how many times we set the traps, but we never got a bike.
Everybody's laughed.
There's probably a lot of three-legged rabbits getting around.
One time we came up to the rock and we chased a big snake.
Oh.
And it went down, there was a well there, the other side of the rock. and it went down this well, and it was there for weeks in this well. We could look down the bottom.
We was frightened to come up there
Yes.
because the snake might have got out the well.
Yeah.
Well, where was the well?
Oh, down the other side there, you know.
Where the fig tree is. Ah.
They must have dug the wells when they built the tank.
Should say.
To test the soil.
Yeah.
How deep the soil was.
It was quite a big hole, wasn't it, Ted?
Yeah, that's what it was there for. Because they couldn't build the tank if they struck granite.
Yeah. And then would they have wanted water? You know, if it rained, they used to fill the well up so they'd have water to put all these drains around the rock, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, then the tank used to run dry, Ted, and then you had to bucket
Yeah, when the water got low, that still had about a foot of water in it, so we used to, Dad made a 4-gallon tin with a thing to fit over that thing, and I used to go there every day and bucket water into this thing so that we had water and
for the sheep trough.
Go home.
Yeah, at the house.
Yeah, to the house, yeah.
God.
Yeah.
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 We used to have a sheet of iron and we used to sit on that and used to go down the slope of the rock.
Yeah. That was down the other end.
That was down the other
Yeah, but how come we still got our fingers and toes?
Oh, well.
And what about a burnt bum?
Yeah.
Because the tin used to get hot.
One thing that happened after harvest, people had clearing sales, and Dad always brought home boxes of goodies, kitchen utensils, brooms and furniture.
Knives and forks or whatever.
Nice cutlery. We never ever bought anything new. We just bought stuff from that people didn't want anymore, but Dad bought probably quite cheaply at the auction.
Auction, yeah.
And one thing he did bring by was an organ. And when he got this organ, it wouldn't play, so he took it all to pieces and got it to working, and we had lots and lots of fun. I played the organ, and we had lots of time Sunday night singing around the organ. I used to play by ear.
And we used to play church, and John was the minister.
In the shearing shed, Ted. And John was Pastor Miller, you know, with his Bible tucked up here.
Yeah.
And then he'd say, and we'll something about the epistle according to such and such, and we'd all laugh.
No, and then the morning, you know.
If Dad would have caught us, he'd have killed us.
Yeah, of course he would have. We wouldn't be near today anyway.
No.
Anyway, going back to the organ episode.
Righto, sorry, Jean.
We all had turned out to be good singers, and later years, the Kwaterskis sang at functions. Ella, Ted, Lyd and Brian Spencer.
And Rita played the organ.
Rita played the organ, and that went on for many years. They were in high demand for their singing.
Yeah, we went to Adelaide for some show too, wasn't it? Was it a family show?
Was one of John's kids' weddings?
Yes, yeah, it was something anyway.
Was it Tania's wedding? I think we did. Yeah, and we sang.
Times we used to spend a lot of time up the Rocky, didn't we?
Yeah, yep.
Yes. Well, that's our only recreation.
Yeah, of course it was.
That was our only recreation. Yeah.
Yep. And those 2 rock holes up on top of the rock, and we were always told they never had a bottom in them, so we never even hardly ever even put our feet in the water.
We used to collect taddies and bring them up.
Yeah.
We used to take our super bags up there and wash them in those
did you?
in those holes.
We
and
did
let 'em
too.
Put them out in the thing to dry.
Yeah.
Remember
We
that?
used to keep all the super bags.
Yeah, yep. And then Dad used to sew them together and make walls of the house.
Yeah, of course we did.
And that was before Dad built the dip, because we used to I can remember putting the super bags in the dip after he dipped the sheep.
Yeah, across the road.
Yeah. I suppose we went through the dip before he put the sheep through, you reckon?
Only you'd think of that, Lyd.
We didn't fall in the dip.
None of us even thought of.
None of us come to any real harm.
Yeah, but we never caused any trouble.
Did you turn us
off?
No. I'm presuming, just before I turn it off, I'm presuming that you've already talked about the geraniums. Yes. But how did that happen? Whose idea?
Yeah,
it would have been Jean's idea.
It was my idea because we all loved gardening. Dad was a great gardener, and we all loved gardening.
And we've all got a good garden.
And all of us, wherever we've settled, we've always had lovely gardens. It was my idea to plant because I don't know why. It was just something that, as we lived on this rock, we lived on here practically every Sunday, you know. And I thought, I probably thought it'd be a nice patch to grow something. So I brought Mum's geranium here. And yeah.
And they're still here?
And they're still here.
And Jean, they'd be about 150 years old, those plants. Not growing there, but the geranium.
I would have planted, I would have been 13. And I remember walking up here with a bucket and a shovel and these plants in the bucket. I remember that as plain as anything. But yeah, and
we used to like gardening. And
all of us loved gardening. Yeah.
Yeah. Ted's got a good garden now.
Yeah, you had to eat something, didn't you? So if you didn't grow anything, you
weren't eating anything. All right, well, thanks very much, Ted. You've been absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, Ella. It's been a real privilege.
No, it's been really
good. And I must say, it's been a real privilege, Jean, and it's been delicious as well. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much. And don't forget to pick the tape up.
I will pick the tape up now. Just before you jump up with that, let me grab the microphone off you. And then you're free. There you go, I've had 3 scones and a fly today, I'm full.
And we saw those geraniums. I said, I was the one that planted them. And she couldn't believe it. She couldn't, you planted them? I said, I would have been about 14 when I planted them, 13 or 14 when I planted them.
And how are they going now, Lyd?
Yeah, they're still alive. Look, and they've got flowers on. Or had flowers on.
Incredible.
It is. Yeah. They would be, how old would they be? Since
they would be what? 86 years old, 87 years old. Yeah. And they're still going.
Yeah. And Dad planted those oaks there, those oaks there. And,
the gum trees around the other side of the rock, Dad would have planted them as well.
Yeah, and the Tacoma there.
And he would have raised all of those from seed. He wouldn't have got them from a nursery. He would have raised all those oaks and gums from seed. Yeah. Yes.
Yep. And he had a big garden too. Yeah.
Good job.
When we went on the farm, Dad planted a garden. We had almonds. He would have grown them from seed. The almond trees. We had almonds galore. We had grapes, rows and rows of grapevines, and vegetables, cucumbers, tomatoes, cucumbers, watermelons coming out of our ears. And Mum used to load her cart up on Saturdays and go into Minippa and sell all her garden produce.
And buy groceries.
She was swarmed, when her cart came in full of tomatoes, cucumbers, watermelons, people were just swarming around her cart to sold everything. Yes. So
in difficult conditions.
Water from the tank here. Yeah. The rainwater from the tank.
Our rainwater, we only had 2 rainwater tanks.
Oh yes, whereabouts was the tank?
Around the other side.
All right, I must get a picture of that.
Yeah.
Let's go and do that. Right.
They need a drink, Lyd. Okay, Derek, finished?
Yeah, you got anything to say about it, Jean?
Huh?
You got anything to say about them?
Just that they need a drink of water.
As always.
As always. But they'll get a drink when it rains. They'll get a drink when it rains. Yeah.
Good job. Thanks, Jean.
This is my last hurrah, Derek, at 95.
At 95 you are doing well, Jean.
Yeah.
I got a bit of help from my little sissies.
So what you got some more plants?
Yeah, now you wanted.
Oh, can I?
There you go.
Oh, awesome. I'm going to forever cherish this.
Yeah, well, and we love having you, Tania.
Yes, thank you.
Lovely having you coming with us.
This has been the best experience of my life.
We're going to go and
I love you
we're going to go and have a coffee at your place.
Are you?
For dinner,
Yes.
we might have a toasted sandwich for lunch.
Can we have that? Do that? Testing. Testing.
Yeah, well, if I get this wrong, it's too late to fix it later, you see. I can do a lot in editing, but not everything. Right. Now.
Yeah, that's Dad.
Scratching his head, his bald head.
Laurie Scholz, you wouldn't know him, but he interviewed Dad and P.P. Cook and Gwen...
Mr. Elefsen.
Yes, and Gwen...
Eric Elefsen, yeah.
I think was old Rolly Carger.
So when was this?
100 years ago.
Not quite that.
This has probably taken how many years ago? Dad's been gone since he died in 1984.
Jean knows all the dates.
So he's probably, somewhere around about the 90s, 70s.
Yeah. You know, when I'm thinking afterwards, you know, when Dad would have been 100, we should have had a get-together, shouldn't we?
We should have, yeah. And do you remember yesterday?
What? It was Mum's birthday. Yeah, but I didn't know. I only looked at my birthday book.
Mum's birthday yesterday.
What date was it? November the 6th.
6th, yep.
And it was Edna's birthday the 6th of October? August?
Yeah, August, yeah.
Yeah, righto.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful picture of Dad, isn't it?
Yeah.